Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with a short Saturday episode. We had quite the news day toward the end of the week. We had some acquisitions, we had the NIL, but I'm going to talk about the Blackstone acquisition of controlling interest in CCG, which is the parent of CSG. You can read the press releases. I read it on Sports Collectors Daily, Rich Muller's fine publication, but I'm trying to get between the lines here and give you my first take on this. So Blackstone, a huge financial powerhouse with $650 billion, not million, but billion in assets. They bought a controlling interest in CCG. Mention was that there was a minority stake retained by the CCG owners. And minority stake could mean 10%, 20%, 30%. If it's significant, my guess is it's not 10, so maybe it's 20 or 30. Again, I know from my experience, when somebody comes in to buy your company, they really just want to buy your company. They will tolerate somebody hanging in there and keeping some interest if they think it's going to align the interest, and that those people who maintain a stake in it are going to really want the company to do well. So it's not a bad thing. It looks like management's going to stay on. Generally, I think that's a good idea when you're having a turnaround and things are messed up, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems like the valuation for CCG has continued to increase. They've had growth this year. The CSG seems to be launching. There was mention of a valuation of more than $500 million. If we just take it as at least $500 million, that's a great payday for the founders. And as I said, management staying on. I like the fact that the investors who have come in and made this acquisition and are involved with Blackstone, Jay-Z, Michael Rubin of Fanatics, Main Street Advisors who do advisory for pro athlete clients. I think that's good. In my mind, I think this is a less complicated acquisition than the acquisition of PSA or the acquisition of Ken Golden's auction company. Now, historically, many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, when I was back at Publications, we had quite a few discussions with the CCG, with Mark Salzberg and Steve Eichenbaum. And it wasn't necessarily about an acquisition, but it could have included us acquiring them. Actually, it was not to acquire CCG. I think I misspoke. SGC was underneath CCG back in those days, and I think they split off. But we had some talks about a merger or an acquisition of SGC, which I said was under them, or some kind of a friendly, cooperative relationship. This was very early on in the grading game when PSA had a pretty big lead. We were just getting started. SGC was established, but they were a distant second to PSA. We just explored the possibility of, if we worked together in some basis, would we be able to more effectively compete against PSA? And now looking back, PSA is clearly the market leader, but BGS has gone on to great success, and I think SGC has done well as well. So it wasn't required that we'd get together, but each one of us worked on our own individual excellence. But we really couldn't agree on a valuation, as I recall back in those days. We couldn't agree on who was going to do what, where we were going to do it, but it was fun talking to another group that was out there trying to make a contribution in what was still perceived as a growing hobby back in the day. It's hypergrowth now. It's interesting to me that CCG was founded in 87. Heritage Auctions had been founded in 76. That was mainly with coins. Sports came in much later. Beckett Publication, founded in 84. PSA began grading coins in 85 and card grading in 91. And when I look at that, all these are relatively recent. They're in my memory. They're in my lifetime. I was there. And so it's amazing how much has happened. But nothing like what's happening now with a couple of acquisitions on the same day. So this is Blackstone's Tactical Opportunities Group, which to me means they really see a growth opportunity in our space. Again, that's a compliment to our category. They mention new technologies. They mention global. They're private. They're not public, so they have no requirement to disclose what they're going to do. I hope they have a longer investment horizon than the 3 to 5 to 7 year that many private equity and some of these hedge fund groups have, because then they want to sell to somebody else for a big profit. Again, that's their prerogative. I'm not the boss, but Blackstone's huge. They don't need the money. They're interested in continuing to make good bets and capitalize on them. This isn't mentioned, but clearly this deal has to have been in the works for a while. They didn't pick up the phone earlier this week. In fact, if they would have picked up the phone earlier this week and said, hey, let's make a deal, that'd be interesting, because there's been more and more news over the last weeks that sports cards, I don't know that they've peaked. They've certainly, I don't believe, have peaked forever, but there's been some movement down in the market away from some of the world record prices, certainly on some of the cards that are easier to find. They're not scarce, but valuable. But since this deal's been in the works for a while, I think they're not looking at world record prices. They're not looking at the price of an individual card that went up 200% and then fell 30%. They're looking at the increase in interest in the category and the number of new people and new money that's coming in, which bodes well for the future. The price of individual cards, they're going to be ups and downs. Like I said, we're going to have a mixed market forever. I hope it's mixed, trending toward up. Okay, last point. What's next? These acquisitions are exciting. That smart money is betting, investing in our category. Price guides. When I was doing price guides, that was a bigger deal then than it is now. I don't know that Beckett Media is even for sale, but price guides are tough. The marketplaces, my slabs, things like that. Would that be something people would be interested in? Dealers, would big money go after dealers like Kit Young? Would they go after vaults like PWCC or consignment services like Probstein? Other auction houses, would there be some big money going after a roll-up of auction houses? The grading companies, besides PSA, besides CSG, SGC, BGS, and these other new entrants. The breakers, we've seen what Loop is trying to do and is gaining traction. The fractionals, could there be a roll-up of fractionals? Although they're not having any trouble raising money, it doesn't seem like. NFTs. I think there's going to be a play in NFTs, and there's already money coming into that. But is that something that could be rolled into one of these other entities? The insurance. Beckett Media just made a deal with insurance. So insurance is thought an important part of this. Could there be a chain of local card shops? Could there be a chain of shows, regional or virtual shows? Could TriStar be in play for the excellent position they have in the autograph signings and some of these other things? Would there be a financial entity that would want to make a big splash in the name, image, and likeness market and try to make a big play for how they could conglomerate that category? And then, of course, the card companies. If they're throwing around hundreds of millions of dollars, Topps perhaps is not the only one. And if they're being $1.3 billion, then would Panini listen? Would Upper Deck listen? Again, there's reasons why people would buy or sell a company. I'll get into that in another episode. But in the meantime, congratulations to CCG. I know from my experience, it can be a sad day, but a happy day when you sell something that you built. Congratulations, Mark and Steve, and hope the Blackstone group treats you, and I hope it's very positive for our industry. Thanks, everybody. Back again on Monday with another full episode.